So, I, as the Bay Harbor urinal pooper, will be explaining all of my tier list. So, before I was a bit lazy, I'm not kind of lie, I was a bit lazy, and that's part of the reason why I didn't fully explain it and I was skimming over to people. But I also will be skimming over to people, right? Because half of these guys on this tier list are mediocre, they are interesting. So, again, I've already explained my standard. Get with the program. If you don't know, now you know. No. But yeah, look, so to start off with, you have Smoothie, Kage, Seb, via Batman, and Tigger at the bottom. Now, the reason why Tigger is at the bottom is because literally, I don't even think, like, maybe he could be good, right? But maybe he's put on some mental limiters on himself, which stops him from exerting more than 10 IQ at a time, because I really don't understand. So Tigger used to be somebody who's considered at least fairly competent in the past. I don't even know if he was even considered competent. Maybe he was just quote unquote really funny, so people tried to excuse the fact that he had such low intelligence and they just said, haha, he's funny, so he's probably trolling, right? But again, I don't understand how this guy was ever respected in the old community. Really, he lacks substance, he lacks argumentation, he lacks knowledge, he doesn't even have any sort of charisma. Instead, all he does is literally just sit there, yell, and thinks that, oh my god, well, if I yell loud enough and I call enough people low tiers, maybe I will feel, respected, especially after I got my head kicked in by No Luck, right? But again, there's not really any nice thing that I can say about Tigger because all of them would be lies. Then you move up to Kage, and Kage couldn't define irony, but he can at least create an argument. I say argument loosely there, by the way, because I don't even know if he even knows what the like valid means. So again, Kage is there simply because he could probably create an argument, even though the argument might just be invalid. Right? Then you have Smoothie. Now, the reason Smoothie is there specifically is because of the fact that he doesn't really do anything impressive. Smoothie, it doesn't seem as if he's trying to improve. He told me that he was reading a bunch. He was reading a bunch about ethics. But the issue is, even if he is reading a bunch about ethics, it doesn't seem to be going in. It seems as if all he's doing is he thinks that knowledge is his issue. But really, fundamentally, the real issue that he has is argumentation. He's not really debated anyone notable. He's not really beaten anyone notable either. So, really, his skill is up in the air. Maybe I'll see something impressive from him. And this isn't to say anything bad about Smoothie. It's like, I don't care about Smoothie really. I don't really mind him. He's all right, I guess, as a human being, right? But again, it's just I don't really see any good reason why he should be much higher. Flames, on the other hand, Flames, he beat Spaz Kage once, but again, it's like a private recording, but he beat Spaz Kage once. He has this one really bad inductive argument or bad probability argument that he tries using. However, I just DM'd him this morning, or I pinged him in a private server with a way to improve the argument. So hopefully, if he improves the argument, he'll actually be able to jump a few spots up on the tier list. I doubt he'll jump a whole tier higher. I think that really in general he lacks the sort of drive needed to get higher, right? Instead, he just thinks he's good already. So because he thinks he's good already, he's just less likely to be prone to ignore that. But he's less likely to be prone to comment on how he can improve. And then you have Spaz Kage. Now, Spaz Kage overall, I've heard, some quote unquote decent things about him. He's supposed to be, one of the better debaters in this private server that I'm in. Alright. Again, even though he did lose to Senju, it's like, look, well, the sort of reasons why he's losing to Senju, they're all entirely skill based. There's no excuses I can make from him, right? Overall, he just seems okay at best. Like, it's sort of that level where, you're better than most of the people in your little group, but everyone in your little group is really bad. So, you're kind of in a stagnant point because everyone in your little group is really bad, so you can't debate them. But also, you aren't really debating anyone who's outside of that little group because of the fact that you lose really badly. I don't know, that's sort of the impression I get from him. I get the impression where it's like, because of the fact that he hangs out with people who are really bad all of the time, that their skill level sort of rubs off on him. Hence why you notice that he's lost to Flames at least once. Like, maybe the Flames skill level is rubbing off on him, but hey, who knows, like, to each their own. Now, another thing is, Akana, no feats. he lost to Jester though, from what I heard. So, but his Jester performance isn't as bad, and I don't think he performed as bad as half of the guys below him would perform. So hey, that's at least something. Then you have Jin. Jin is he's all right. He's a human being. I can say that he exists. He can breathe, but those are the only few notable things I can really say about Jin. He's like overall just pretty average. I'm not even gonna lie. There's not really much I can say about him. In terms of the knowledge aspect, he typically he tries to do the whole invincible ignorance thing, where if he thinks your interpretation is wrong, he'll just repeat the initial argument that he gave, keep repeating it over and over again, and be like, "Yo, you're wrong. You're wrong. The scan says this." But then if you're like, "Oh well, why does the scan say this and not this?" Then he'll be like, "You're wrong. It just clearly says this." And it's like, okay, well, I get the sort of frustration that you can have with people, but like, especially if again maybe he's right some of those instances and the scan does actually say what he said, but simply just being right isn't enough for you to win a debate. So again, clearly it's like and especially because of the fact that he's like losing to some of these people. I know back in the day when Marky was still around, right, he lost to Marky supposedly, and yeah, he just really, from the point in which like the old deadlock existed, which was like, I don't want to talk about the deadlock, but unless like aside from the old deadlock, it doesn't seem he's really gotten much better since then. I know he beat Kenta at least once, but it's like, okay, well, Kenta hasn't really beaten anybody, so yeah. Next on the list, I'm gonna skip all of them until I get to D1 now, because they're all move go right. Quite frankly, most of these lower tiers are like wow, and yeah, they're all kind of relative. So who knows? So then you have D1. D1's kind of impressive. I'm pretty sure he beat Midnight at least once, but again, supposedly Midnight has quote unquote unrecorded performances, and even though that is all I'm going off of, it's like, okay, maybe I'll give him a little bit of leniency, right? But again, D1 generally, in terms of like knowledge on Naruto, he seems to have the knowledge stat down. It isn't like most people on Naruto are really going to knowledge cliff him. The sort of issue that he has is his argumentation. He likes to do this thing where he'll like shotgun you at the start. Then if you respond, and typically, and this is the sort of error that most people run into, is that they have this inclination to also respond to the shotgun of their own. But then D1 will be like, hey, that's a shotgun. You can do that. And it's like, well, you shotgun me first. And obviously in the battle of shotguns with D1, it's like, because he's so used to doing it, you probably aren't going to win that exchange, right? D1's just a better gunslinger than you, right? So seeing as D1 is one of the greatest gunslingers on Chord, right? Obviously, he's really good at shotgunning, and he's also really good because of the fact that he's so aggressive. It's like his opponent will be itching to respond, and since his opponent is itching to respond, they kind of forget the fact that they're getting 16 points thrown at them at once, and then sort of in the middle of their response, or the middle of their reply, they'll notice, oh wow, those are a lot of points that I need to respond to, and then they'll realize that they've already fallen into D1's ultimate trap, and yeah, then the debate just goes into hell from there. Alright, but again, those are the sort of qualities I doubt that Flames would be able to get past. That Flames would probably never call out a shotgun, or even if he did call out a shotgun, it'd be like, well, do you even have the argumentative skill to, beat, like, do you even have the argumentative skill to even beat D1 on why his argument is a shotgun? And it's like, well, I doubt Flames does. I definitely doubt someone like Smoothie does, but hey, maybe they've debated him once and it was on inverse dog router and then they beat him. Who knows? Right? Anything can happen. Then as I move up on further on the list, Archie, I've never seen Archie give an argument for his position, but what he really is good at is deflecting. He's really good at obfuscating. He's really good at prevaricating. He's really good at not he's really good at not giving arguments, right? And it's like, I've also noticed this whenever I watched like Trini debate Para. It's like I was looking for an argument for more realism from Trini, and I was like, maybe Trini has some really good arguments for more realism, right? But then I just didn't see any, so it's like, okay, well, that was kind of a waste of my time. But yeah, like what's it called? Archie kind of does the same thing where he'll be like, hey, this is my position, and keep in mind his position will entail him being on the positive. So you'll notice if it's something like for example, when me and him were debating on meta ethics, he was taking the stance of more realism, and I was just a conditional error theorist, right? So I was just saying that, like, what's it called? If anyone makes a sort of claim where the truth of that moral claim is dependent on a stance and dependent fact, then all of those sorts of moral claims that they're making are false, right? And he didn't understand that, for one, but two, also he immediately started trying to press me about. I was like, hey dude, like, I can even just say, yeah, no, your position is false. Like, there are no stance independent moral facts, right? Or there's no good evidence for stance independent moral facts. It's like, I don't need to be on the positive to argue against this position. And it's like, someone like Archimedes doesn't really understand that. Maybe he used to be a half decent rat, but it's like, okay, well, ratting in the bigger four, it's like, really, are we really? Is that this type of thing I praise people for? Chrome really has no feats, but however, it's like, from general interactions with the guy, he does give me the overall impression that he's really competent, if you get what I mean. Like, I don't know what it is, but overall, people, there's a large consensus, even from people who he chills with, that he's way worse than Gias. And it's like, okay, yeah, Gias is just the epitome. Gias is what it means to be a tier 5. So that's also why I'm going to skip him. Tawun, on the other hand, the reason why Tawun is higher than Chrome, and I've been hearing a lot of comments on why Tawun is higher than Chrome, one is only due to the fact that he sort of embodies the sort of debate criteria that I have way better than Chrome does, right? But additionally, he just beat Gias, man, and it's like, look, um, I'm doubt that many people think that, like, many people think that Chrome is better than Gias, or Chrome could even beat Gias. So since people don't think that Tawon beat Gias, Tawon is also, if I look at the list, let me think. So there's him, 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 him. No, he'd lose. Him, 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 him. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, there are only 11 people on this lower half of the tier list to be able to actually beat Tawon on JJK, which is kind of crazy to say, especially when, like, Tawon kind of killed his own reputation. And, like, there's a huge point in the community where if you lost to Tawon, that basically meant that you need to quit debating immediately, right? And, it's like, well, that's why reputation is so important. But it's like, he kind of killed his own debate reputation, so nobody kind of took him seriously. But at the same time, even though they didn't take him seriously, they were all worse than him. So it was like, okay, well, that's a bit awkward. But yeah, Townsend's that high. He sort of earned his place that high, really. But again, if Tone was that high, Tyrell would also have to be a placement higher, because Tyrell did also beat Gias, so the Gias thing doesn't really work. I don't know, actually. It's like, I think Gias might have won his Tyrell debate, but who knows, man, to each their own. Then you move up. Midnight, he's mediocre Midnight. There's nothing really special to say about him. He hasn't really beaten anybody. I know that supposedly he beat D1, but it's like, okay, well, that's up in the air. I don't even know if he beat D1 or not, right? And I think that they were probably relative in that debate. Probably. That's what I've heard, or that's the impression I got whenever I was watching it for the first time, that they were going at least a little bit relative. It didn't seem like one person was slamming the other, right? However, again, it was like, okay, well, going relative with D1. And again, this Midnight guy also, he also takes the cake of one of the most delusional people I've ever met, because not only does he simultaneously thinks that, oh well, he could be Eric, but also he's like going relative with D1. And also it's like, I asked him for his meta ethical view, then he gave me a normative ethical view, and it's like, okay, yeah, good job. You definitely know a lot, right? You definitely be Eric with this type of knowledge, right? It's like, okay, if you're making all of these simple, really easy, like, tracking blunders in text, then it's like, okay, unless you're someone like me who, like, doesn't care whenever I type in text. So it's like, okay, well, even if he doesn't care, at least you'd want to be saying something coherent if you're being asked a question, right? And yeah, it's just, he seems kind of mediocre. It doesn't seem like he knows a lot about anything, really. It didn't really seem like there was anything that he particularly excelled at compared to any of the other people who are above him. But yeah. Then you have someone like Ziza. He's Ziza. There's not much else to say. He's not really done much. Like supposedly he beat Archie, but then it's like, okay, cool, Archie's really bad. But yeah, he's not really done much, I'm never gonna lie. But it's just like from debating him, he just seems okay. He seems passable, right? It's like he's the sort of guy who, if you were going to give him a debate test, right, he's the sort of guy who you'd give him a C plus in the debate test, because it's like, okay, well, you aren't really you're really special. You aren't really, interesting, but you are passable. So yeah, that's the sort of impression I have whenever I interact with Ziza. Um, then you have Infinity. He beat Jester once, and the debate he had with Jester was like on the debate he had with Jester was on Naobito versus Naoya. So he beat Jester once on JJK, which also calls into question like why is Jester even that high in the first place. But hey, who knows, right? I've been getting loads of comments that hey, Jester's lost to all of these people in your tier list. It's like or lost to all of these people below you in your tier list. It's like, hey, guys, chill. What do you guys know about Prime Jester? It's like, yeah, I don't know about Prime Jester either, right? The only reason why he's that high, really, is because of the fact that he has a half decent Bubbles performance, right? But it's like, okay, well, I don't really care about the Bubbles performance because I don't think he went relative. But again, benefit of the doubt outweighs all in this context. Same with Godly is relative to Jester. Nobody cares. Lightning Jax is okay, right? I debated him on abortion. He lost in 16 minutes. Hence, is one of the main reasons why Yanni is like above him, right? Because Yanni didn't lose to me in abortion on 16 minutes, right? He has quite half decent arguments. I'm pretty sure he's aware of what consequentialism is, which would sort of puts him above the guys who couldn't tell the difference between a normative ethical theory and meta-ethical theory. But yeah, he knows what consequentialism is. He seems half sentient. He has decently good delivery whenever he's making his points. It seems as if he's able to like force an issue really well. So for example, if you try and land a reductio on you, it's like if you get hit with a reductio, you're going to be able to tell that he hit you with one, but then you'll be able to tell he's one of those things where he's one of those guys like you'll be able to know whether or not he thinks he's winning by the tone of his voice. But yeah, overall he's just half decent. Yanni's like the prince who never, again, I've said this before, he's like the prince who never became king. He could have become really good at the bane. He just doesn't have the motivation to, right? Because he needs to hit the trap and all. It's like, dude, if I hit the trap, you might as well become good at Disco the Bane while you're at it. But hey, who knows, to each down. Then I'm gonna skip all of these people. Like, I don't really care to talk about Reg. To Seth is like kind of average. Whenever I saw him talk about veganism, he was getting absolutely punched on by randoms in the veganism server, right? And then I'm pretty sure he was like praising himself as well because it's like, oh well, this is his first time debating veganism. It's like, okay, yeah, well, it is your first time, cool, but sorry to say, most of the low tiers, like currently, wouldn't be making the sort of blunders that he was, right? Like, how are you going to tell me that just because it's your first time, you're performing worse than Smoothie is on abortion? So, in terms of abortion or in terms of like philosophy, if he was to debate it, then he'd be somewhere around WoW tier, like, or he'd be someone like somewhere below that, specifically because he's just like really bad at it. But in terms of fiction, though, supposedly he taught 6, supposedly he's like fiction debating, like he's God's gift to fiction debating. And I've heard some guys, I know like some semi-decent people said, oh yeah, no, this guy seems a little bit sharp, but then upon watching further of his debates, their opinions change really rapidly. But still, the ability to at least trick them to at least temporarily into thinking that you are half sentient seems to be a bit of a feat. But yeah, really, Seth kind of has no feats. Like, I know people say, oh well, but he one-shot error. It's like, okay, well, you already know what I think about this guy, alright? But hey, on to the, now people might ask who is this. That's the go. Void would probably, like, if we really want to name a few people, Void would one-shot in a few sentences. Void would one-shot him, 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 him. He beat him, but I doubt it was a one shot. Him, 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 him. Yeah, Void's cold. The only reason 6 is that high is because of his performance against Juju, but yeah. Moving up to the tier above, you have Folks. Folks' rhetoric is, and specifically when I say rhetoric in this context, I'm talking about his arguments, right? Arguments are integrated, at least in the sense I'm talking about now, right? Folks' rhetoric is great. He's really good at his delivery in the sense that like he makes really complex arguments seem really, really simple. He has this ability of just like, I don't know if it's just with me, but even if I like really really dislike Folks at the time, or Folks is like doing something that's like annoying me, he has the ability to like pacify his opponents. It's like, could that be considered a skill? Like he can pacify his opponents, he makes them less angry as he debates them. It's like, but generally Folks' argumentation is just really really good compared to these other people. I think him versus Void would be at least a comp debate, right? Skipping all of these guys, he's just okay. Like, okay. He he was losing to T Jump for at least a good portion of their debate. So he was losing to T Jump. Gizbob is just like that, bro. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, okay, whoa, that was close. But I've debated Gizbob and I've debated Folks on JJK. Gizbob is just way better that it isn't even comparable. Right? Again, it's like, you need to put in at least a decent amount of thinking whenever like you're debating Gizbob. And the only reason why Gizbob's law kind of killed itself is because because Bridge decided to do something really silly, and he decided to debate Folks, and then he got low diffed by Folks. So this is like a low diff difference, right? So he decided, so from here to here would low diff here, right? And it would also, but I doubt he'd low diff here only though. So yeah, here would low diff here down, but yeah, then Giz, what's it called, single. The reason why single is that high, and I know everyone who's like sees single high on my tier list is like, okay, well, Shinra name 3 single Phoenix feats, and it's like, okay, well, cool. Even if I'm unable to do that, if you just like, and specifically, I don't even know why can't I do that, and the reason why I can't is because of the fact that he just decides that he just decide randomly that, oh well, even though he does debate publicly, you notice that he's in like the politics server almost all of the time, and he's debating people there constantly. It's like none of those are recorded. If you notice, he just seems like he's very knowledgeable. I had a harder time debating him than I had debating Folks on abortion, right? In general, he's just like really competent. There isn't anything I can say about him that's like lacking really. He isn't lacking in the rhetoric aspect. He isn't lacking in the argumentation aspect. He isn't lacking in his delivery. He isn't lacking in really anything. Right. So he's like a jack of all trades. He's the full package. Right. Okay, that's kind of neat. But yeah, he seems he's just generally overall really competent. There's no really sort of super negative thing I could say about him. Although the only sort of critique that I'd give him is that he buys too much into the, oh, I don't care about your intuition sort of, haha, yeah, I'll bite every bullet, who cares, why is that reductio sort of stuff. It's like, well, if he sort of models his arguments, and I know he can do that he can model his arguments in such a way in which it doesn't seem obviously intuitively absurd to everyone else who is listening to him debate, right? It's like if he modeled his arguments in that fashion, he could definitely be a lot higher. I think that these three are probably in their own little deadlock, that they're all super relative to each other. Juju killed 6, lol. Like, there's nothing else to say. People ask me, oh, well, why is Juju that high? He beat 6, right? And he's better than me. He's better than me at fiction, right? So it's like Juju's just cold. Like, there's not much else I can say. Juju's just cold, but. I mean, yeah, he is cold, yeah. There's not really a critique I can give of Juju. The sort of issue is just that he just doesn't have that many recordings. And the reason why particularly is just because of the fact that, like, there's no super good fiction debaters who exist, right? And he sort of represents a sort of peak of fiction debaters. But, yeah, he's like... I know he's like way better than Bubbles. He really beat up Bubbles really badly, but yeah. So I guess you could say this is also a low diff difference. Who else? Danny Phil talks. He beat Mike Jones or Michael Jones, he be inspiring philosophy. He's just overall super competent, man. Like I forget, like I can't really name. It doesn't really roll off the tongue. Julian, he had a really good performance against Divinity. Divinity has really good performances against the transitive scaling. Come on now, transitive debate scaling. Um, what else? C and I, we beat Julian. Like, we beat Julian. I beat him twice. C beat him once in their debate. For some odd reason, C versus Julian wasn't recorded. But he won judgment in Glock server, and then for all the people who watched the debate, they all came up with the impression that he won, but I also beat Julian. Then C and I both have like really good performances against Venus. Whenever I was talking to Venus, I was even defending a position that I don't even hold, right? Which makes it even like harder to defend, especially when it's against somebody who's really intelligent. So yeah, like Venus, even though he is a drunkard, but maybe he's mastered the drunken debate fest or something like that, where he can debate at his full power or whatever. He could bear his full power while drunk. The drunken debate first. Come on now. That's a cool title. But anyways, there's that. What else? Sonic, I watched him debate Cinta, even though he did probably lose to Cinta. I was watching it on the bus today, alright, because the bus was empty. You know that one moment where it's like the bus is empty, there's nobody else to talk to, right? Your phone's the sort of reception that you have on the phone is like you won't be able to use any of your social media, but you'll be able to watch YouTube, right? Where you're like using the bus Wi-Fi because reception over there is really bad. It's like that was kind of the situation I found myself in today. And yeah, he did super well against VI, he against Center. Because I'm going to debate Center soon, he also helped me a lot with my prep because I watched the debate. Like, it was kind of cold. Overall, and he's beaten C a lot of the time. Like, most of the times they interact with each other. So it's like, yeah, so Sonic's good. He's cold. What else? What else? Destiny, Destiny and Bunk are just the same person, except for one of them has direct teachings from Center, and the other one doesn't. So it's like, and also, Bunk just has a really good performance against Eric on Infinitism. And I'm pretty sure some people at least thought that Bunk won that. Even though I heavily disagree that Bunk won that. The fact that he's still able to convince people, especially with all of the lore that Eric has, that he won that is really impressive. Like, there's nothing really I can say bad about him. I don't watch enough of his debates to be able to like give you a whole comprehensive guide on how good he is. But you can just take my word for it. He's like, who's like basically just Center with less knowledge and less argumentation. Gadfly, he's him. Mason, he's him too. But the issue is, it's like the issue is, it's just like, how to explain this? He lost to Divinity supposedly. So since he lost to Divinity, and like Apollo beat Divinity, and Apollo also did beat Mason, so Apollo has to be here. Sully's only here because like. So Sully literally has no good reason to be there. I've not watched a single Sully debate in my life. Venus, he's him. And the rest of the tier list above is just like self-evident. Obviously, you have her. Now, I would say something, but I'd get this video taken down, okay? And then you have Doorman. The only reason Doorman's that high because he's the GOAT, he has lore, he has it all, he's tall, like, okay, this is getting to the point of knees, but yeah, he's just really competent, like, you know, what's it called? He walked down T-jump really badly, but it's like, okay, well, everyone else in the tier could do that. It's like, yes, everyone else in the tier could do that, but could they do it the way Doorman did it? And it's like, well, no, they couldn't really do it the way Doorman did it because Doorman's the GOAT, man. But yeah, Doorman's placement there is just, he's him, bro. I don't know what else to say. Also, I've just seen him put really high on tier list, so I just like, hey, it'd be kind of odd if there was only 2 people in the tier. It might as well be 3. These other guys are just like placeholders. I doubt Andrew Wilson is probably better than Destiny, especially via their like was January 6th an insurrection debate where like Destiny kept trying to make him give a definition, and he also beat Econ Boy really badly. And Thank God his debate with Econ Boy wasn't an economics debate, because I have not the slightest clue about economics. But I was told by some people that Cinta's debate with Econ Boy as well on economics was kind of close. So maybe you could say Andrew Wilson is that high. I don't watch his debates. Don't like. I don't know why I don't watch his debates, but I don't watch his debates. But yeah. That's been the overall guide to Shinra'S tier list. If you like the video, you do like the video, like and subscribe. This has been Shinra, and I'm out.